Profit Visibility Lab, episode 28. Tonight we're looking at a bottleneck that becomes more common as businesses are increasing their activity. And it's not because they weren't doing enough activity before, but it is because they're looking at more movement than ever before and trying to make sense of it in understanding the business. Let's use a simple founder scenario. Not a client, not a case study, just a common business occurrence that happens to most founders on a regular basis. Right? In this case, let's see. The LinkedIn post went viral, generated 15 inbound messages, 4 discovery calls, and a proposal. It was booming. Something finally appeared to be working, and movement became visible. I could see, I increased my activity, I had this post, and I got more stuff. So let's dig a little deeper. So the team doubles down, right? Nothing irrational has happened yet, but this is exactly how founders evaluate a situation like this. The hidden assumption is that the visible activity has a causal relationship with the results. So this is where the risk enters. Visibility and causation are not the same thing. So the drift begins. And this is when confidence grows faster than the evidence that supports it. And this is kind of what it feels like to a founder. From the inside of the business, you're like, I've been busy all day. We're busy all the time. Why can't I tell what's moving anything? Okay? The bottleneck appears before movement becomes reliable enough to reinforce. In other words, I see this and there's more movement and activity, but I'm really not sure if there's enough evidence that this is actually the thing that's moving the needle. The reason why this gets confusing is because the movement is visible. You can see the movement. And the attribution, though, remains uncertain. You see the movement, but you're not exactly sure if that movement is what resulted in the activity. Or you can't actually tell if that activity that you're looking at really was causal to the movement you're experiencing in the revenue system. And that is the contradiction. So let's look at before the reinforcement, before the post. So in January, we were posting 2 LinkedIn posts a week, 50 outreach messages a month, 20 follow-up conversations a month, and that generally generated 20 qualified conversations and about $40,000 in revenue in our example, okay? And before the post took off, the business was generating movement through several different behaviors, not just one. Okay? Before the post took off, before the viral post took off, the movement, this is the movement attribution decision that gets made. Because the post took off, we made an assumption. It performed well, and so the founder decided we're going to put some more some more, we're going to reinforce that activity with some more movement. And so we invest more heavily in content. So in March through May, we go from 2 posts a week to 7 posts a week, and we double the content production. Has this happened to anyone? Now, the sacrifice doesn't necessarily feel real in the moment, but it is real to the revenue system, because even though they successfully scaled the content, they're now doing 20 outreaches a month instead of 50, and 8 follow-up conversations a month instead of the normal 20. Right? That new investment wasn't really free, was it? The attention moved, time moved, and the focus moved. Now, look at the revenue though. Something interesting happens. Even though the behavior being reinforced increased, more content, the revenue movement decreased. How's that possible? Posting went up, visibility went up, qualified conversations went down, revenue declined. And the whole time you're thinking, but wait a minute, I thought that was driving the growth, because it looked like it was visible movement. Now, the revenue system is the truth. The system shows that there's less qualified movement, less proposal opportunity, and less revenue movement. The revenue system is the truth. So the bottleneck was not the posting. The bottleneck is knowing what deserves reinforcement, what is qualified to receive additional time and resources. So the founder became certain about what to scale without the evidence to justify it. Now, traditional attribution looks at what tactic drove the results, right? Most founders stop here with what tactic produced a result. But we want to introduce a concept of revenue-focused attribution. And with revenue-focused attribution, we're looking at where is the movement in the revenue system as a result of this activity. That question changes everything, because tactics create activity. Only the revenue system can reveal movement. So why does this matter? Because just because something is getting attention does not mean it's actually moving you towards more revenue. These are two entirely different things. Mapping the revenue system reveals where the movement is increasing, breaking, or expanding before reinforcement decisions are made, before that investment of time and effort is invested. The revenue system reveals that movement. The goal is not to identify a winning tactic. The goal is to identify where revenue is increasing, where movement is increasing, where it's flat, and where it's breaking. The goal is not to identify what the next tactic will be. The goal is to identify where movement is happening in the revenue system, where it's breaking, and where it is producing results. That's what deserves reinforcement. That's what earns reinforcement. So, what is a revenue system map? A revenue system map takes a look at the movement of revenue through your business. It's simply a visual representation of how revenue moves through the business. It's not forecasting. The purpose is to see where revenue is, where movement is occurring, and where it's stalling, which can be many places in a business. So that's why we diagnose before we deploy. Before you scale a tactic, before you increase an activity, before you reallocate time, money, or attention. First, determine where movement is actually occurring in the revenue system. That is revenue-focused attribution.